Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really a pleasure to have you here. I'm Lulu Freistad. I am the Executive Director of Smart Elections, and we have some really interesting information for you tonight. So this is our Election Protection Forum, and what we are here to talk about is how to protect our elections. I think in the past, the term election protection has really been used to talk about voter protection. And a lot of it is before the election. It's about making sure that the votes aren't suppressed, making sure that everybody has the opportunity to vote and that the process is smooth for them. And they have that right. And that's a really important part of the process. But election protection also has to mean the back end of the process. What happens after that vote gets cast? Does it get counted correctly? And does it get counted accurately? Like, does every vote actually get counted the way that the voter intends for it to be counted? And that's what a lot of our work is about. And it's about bringing people into that process, people who may have worked in a lot of other areas in the elections previously, maybe for voting rights, to get money out of politics, against gerrymandering, or working against the Electoral College. And what we're saying is this particular part of the election, making sure that all of the votes are counted accurately, is one of the most important parts of the election. Because if we're not counting all the votes accurately, then we actually don't know who won the election. Then the election actually doesn't tell us what we want to know, which is what the majority of the voters believe and how they want their government to be run. And so what we've been doing, we started a project called Count the Vote, and that's our hashtag, Count the Vote. And we have a really cool website now at countthevote.info. And what we're doing there, the first part of the project is we had advocates all over the country who took pictures of poll tapes. And you might be saying, what's a poll tape? Some of you who have been with us for a while all know what a poll tape is by this point. Hi, Robin. Robin's a long time advocate. I know she knows what a poll tape is. So a poll tape is kind of like a cash register receipt. It's what the voting machines print out at the end of election night. And one of the things that they're useful for is to compare to the results that are actually reported, because sometimes something can go wrong in between the time that the votes are reported on election night at the polling location and then when they are reported later on a website, for example. They go through a lot of steps. Usually they're on flash drives. Those flash drives get put into sealed bags. They get taken down to a county. They get put into a computer. Sometimes they get put in a spreadsheet. Sometimes they get relayed over an internet line, like a modem. Sometimes they go on a website then. So there's a lot of different stages where a vote could actually get lost. And we want to know if that's happening. We want to know actually what's happening to the votes at every stage from the time the voter casts it. But it's a little bit complicated, and each stage has to be checked separately. So the part that we're checking right now is the part about the poll tapes. Did the poll tape information actually get to the results? And we've actually found there were actually instances, not that we found, I'm going to tell you about what we found, but even without our project, I know that in Floyd County, Georgia, where they're doing a hand count, they actually discovered when they were doing the hand count, 2,500 votes that had just been not included. And if we had had a picture of the Floyd County, Georgia poll tape, then we would have been able to tell them that before they did the hand count. So, and that's one of the reasons why a hand count is also a really good thing to do after a machine count, is because you will find those mistakes. So there's several different ways to find the mistakes, but the poll tapes are one of them, and hand count's one of them. And we're going to talk about both of those things tonight. So so we have a couple guests tonight. Harvie Branscomb is here. He's been actually down in Georgia at the hand count that they're doing. I think most people know that they are counting the full hand count. They are counting the full 5 million votes for the presidential race in Georgia by hand. And he's going to give us the details of that. He's been watching there on the ground. And then we're also going to have Stephanie Singer on at the end of the forum to talk to us about a tool that she's using that's really interesting. She's Dr. Stephanie Singer is somebody with a great deal of experience working with verified voting. And she's got a really interesting statistical tool. So, but I think the first thing that I want to do is there's just been kind of like so much kind of anxiety, so rumors flying everywhere about kind of what is going on with our elections. And I want to just tell you a few things. Number one, Smart Elections is a nonpartisan group. And that's very, very important to us, that this project remain nonpartisan, because every candidate has the right to have their votes counted honestly, and every voter has the right to have their vote counted accurately. And that is the basis of our democracy. And so what's important is for us to look for evidence to make sure that the votes are counted accurately. And there's a few groups that are nonpartisan. There's not that many, actually, and I actually find it disappointing. Sometimes there's groups that say they're nonpartisan, and then when you get to know them and you sort of watch their Twitter feed, or you work with them, you figure out they're not really nonpartisan. They really have a very definite opinion about who they want to win. So for me, it's important to actually be nonpartisan, not just to say that we're nonpartisan. And there's another group that's very similar in tone in that regard, and it's called Issue One. And I wanted to tell you about their group, and because it's good to look out for these groups that actually are nonpartisan, because a group that's nonpartisan is going to give you a different perspective. They're going to tell you something that's a little bit more neutral, or maybe they're going to give you both sides of the story. And they put out this video that, oh, Stephanie's not here yet. They put out a video that I'd like to play for you right now. And because I think that it's just nice to start with something that's positive. And I think this is a positive video.
We did it. Americans, from both parties, turned out to vote in numbers like we haven't seen in 100 years. And election officials counted those votes carefully, transparently, and in accordance with the law. So no matter who you voted for, if you cast a ballot or counted them, thank you for showing the world that even in times like these, America is still going strong.
So I think that's just kind of a nice message. It's something that a bipartisan or nonpartisan group put out just to say that, hey, we're going to get through this. And it's important to note also that this is absolutely not the first time that we've had controversies about our elections. If you have, if you're not 18, if this isn't your first election, you will remember other elections where we had a lot of controversy. In 2000, there was a very difficult election between 2000, it was between Al Gore and Bush. God, it's hard to remember that far back. And then in 2004, there was a lot of controversy in the Bush-Kerry race, especially in Ohio. So we definitely have had some very contentious elections in the past. This is not the first time. And I have confidence that we're going to get through this. And what I want to talk to you about right now is the project that we're working on that I told you, countthevote.info is our website. And so what we've been doing, we had advocates all over the country. They took pictures of poll tapes, and then we aggregated those from 2 different sources, and we've done a tremendous amount of work. We've aggregated probably close to between 600 and 700 poll tapes at this point, and we've had volunteers come in and sort them by county and transcribe them, the serial number, the time the polls opened, and the results. And now we're comparing them to election results to see if there are discrepancies. And so we have one that we wanted to show you that is a possible discrepancy. We're looking at it tonight. And so I'm going to show you this poll tape right now. It's from Terrell County, Georgia. And our team put this together. And this is actually the first time that we've shown this to anybody. And we're going to call the county in the morning and say, hey, we think this might be an issue. Have you looked at it? So we want to show it to you. And you can look at it also, and we can all together try to figure it out. So let's just get this up on the screen. Okay, so what you're seeing on the left is the poll tape. It's a photograph of, it's in Terrell County, Georgia. It's the Dawson Government Center. And I'm going to grab the actual link, if I can grab it fast and blow it up. Let's see if I can blow this one up. Yeah, is that blowing it up on your screen? I think it went into another browser. So I think this is the way that StreamYard works. I'm sorry about this, but I have to share it with you in a separate browser, but it's not that big a deal. It's not that hard to do. So just give me a moment. So these poll tapes were submitted to us by Coalition for Good Governance. They're a group that works in Georgia, and they've done really, really good work there. They sent advocates all over Georgia on election night taking photographs of poll tapes and uploaded them to a website called csay2020.com. And let's see, I have to make sure I can get this up. This should be over here now. And okay. I see. I have to move it into a different browser. Sorry, it's a little bit complicated to do this for you because we have this. We haven't actually put this on our website yet. So I have to share some of the files that are kind of behind the scenes right now with you. So now I should be able to share this with you. Okay. And I should be able to blow it up nice and big. And let's see if you're seeing that. Yeah, it looks like you are. So you can see one of the things about this poll tape is that it's an early voting poll tape because it you can see the polls open there on October 13th. So that means that poll tape, that means they started voting October 13th. So that's an early voting poll tape, which is actually a little bit unusual. Most of the poll tapes usually are just on election night. So we noticed a few of these in Georgia where they actually post the early voting poll tape. But then what we noticed about it is a little bit strange. So this is 1,069 votes for Donald Trump and 969 votes for Biden. Is that following? Doesn't seem to be moving as I'm moving down. It's such a drag. I have to keep stopping this and resharing it with you, but it's okay. So I'm going to reshare it now, and you're going to see that I've scrolled down the poll tape so you can actually see the votes. Popped back. Trying to see if it's going to show this to you. Yeah, okay, now you can see it. Okay, so there's 1,069 votes for Trump and 969 votes for Biden. So then what we did was we went and we looked at the Terrell County Dawson precinct that was reported by the county. And I'm trying to see if I can blow this up for you nice and big also before we get over there. And you'll be able to see that it doesn't match, which is concerning. So let's move this over for you. And you know, anybody can do this. It's not that hard. So we have all these poll tapes up on our website, and the results are available on the county's election websites. So you yourself can go and check these also. But we're trying to do it in bulk, so we make it easier for you. We're trying to do it as fast as possible so that if there are discrepancies, we can find out prior to the results actually being certified. So let's just see if I can scroll down and let you see the results here. It's still not that big. But if I put my screen full screen, I can see that. And I can see that Donald Trump there between election day and advanced voting is what they call early voting there. So if you add up 79 and 270, you're going to see quite clearly that that doesn't come to the amount that we had for Trump's votes. On the poll tape, the Trump votes were 1,069. So that doesn't make sense. And then if you look at the Biden votes, and again, I've blown that up for you kind of as big as I can at this point, but the Biden votes 311 on election day and 619. So if you add that up, I'm kind of doing this in my head right now, but I think that looks like 930 in my head. And if you look over at the poll tape, it was 969 for Biden. So it isn't quite making sense. And so this is actually exactly the type of discrepancy that we're looking for. We are looking for places where possibly there's been a mistake. Doesn't mean that the results have been manipulated. It means that possibly the results have not been reported accurately. And that's what we want. We want the results to be reported accurately. So we're going to call the county in the morning and find out, maybe sometimes there's an explanation for these things. It may be that these votes were tallied in a different way, and their way that they've done their spreadsheets doesn't quite make sense to us. There may be a completely legitimate explanation, but that's what we want to find out. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. We are checking county by county, precinct by precinct, to see that these results are reported accurately. And we've actually done this, as I said, we've aggregated between 600 and 700 poll tapes, and we've already done the comparisons for most of the ones we got for Broward County, for Pennsylvania, and for Georgia. And we actually did find another discrepancy that was definitely a discrepancy in Cobb County, where votes were not reported. The poll tape showed a discrepancy, and one of the poll tapes actually just got left out of the results. Luckily, we weren't the only ones that caught that. The clerk had actually caught it, and she went directly to the people who took the photograph of the poll tape and got the results. And of course, they have the flash drive there as well. So that one got worked out before we caught it, but it's nice to know that if they hadn't caught it, we would have caught it. It was in our records. We saw that it was a discrepancy, and our paperwork caught that. So if you're interested in joining us, this is actually how you check election results. And this project is unprecedented in terms of its scale. Nobody's ever done this at this scale, at this speed. We have done checks on election results usually after they get certified, because it usually takes so long to do all of this paperwork. And that's not really when it counts. When it counts is right now, before they certify. And so for us to have checked hundreds and hundreds of precincts across the country is unprecedented, the speed and the scale. And we're really proud of that. So you can go to our website, countthevote.info, and I can actually pop over there right now and just show you the website. It's really cool. And I want to show you kind of how to use it. There's all of the spreadsheets are online right now. Not all of them, but 3 states worth of spreadsheets are online right now. And we're going to be getting more up as soon as we can. So this is our website, countthevote.info. And what you can do is you can scroll down, and when you see the states here, and I showed people this last week, so if you're here last week, this is not news to you, but you can see the states. And so say you want to, we already showed you Georgia, but say you want to look at Pennsylvania, you go into Pennsylvania, and we're going to be showing here the poll tape data. That's where you can actually see the actual poll tape. So it won't, I don't want to go through this because it goes into another browser and my screen won't show you, but it'll show you the actual the actual transcription that we've done, and I'll show you where to look for the actual poll tape also. So we'll just do a little bit more here, and then we'll move on. So when you go into our tab, this is what it looks like. These are our spreadsheets, and what you can do now is you can click on this link right here. Do you see where my cursor is? That link, if you click on that, that will actually show you, in Pennsylvania, these are videos. It'll show you the video of the poll tape, and then you can actually scroll down in the spreadsheet and you can see how we transcribed it. You can see what our team thought the actual results were. We've transcribed them, and you can see all the numbers down below, where it'll show you how many ballots, and then it'll start to show you the different candidates. See, you can see here in this one, the results for Joe Biden 94, Donald Trump 32. So you can check those if you want. It's kind of fun. You get to go and look at poll tapes, and we are in the process of getting a Google form up so that you can actually tell us if you find any mistakes that we've made. You can let us know. So you can be our expert review team also. So say you want to join us in this. We would love to have you join us. The thing to do is to go to our website, countthevote.info, and there's a thing that says join us. And we need volunteers, and we need all kinds of volunteers, actually, especially people who have data skills. If you're good with spreadsheets, if you know how to write code and pull down information from the web, that's very useful. We also need people people, like we need people to kind of help us coordinate. A lot of us are data people, and so we need people to kind of like keep us communicating with each other within the teams. We need social media people to get the word out, people to help us on the website. We need all kinds of people. So if you want to help us, please, we put up volunteer time slots in the volunteer spot, and if you go to that website, there are places to volunteer. And I will say also, we could certainly use your support financially. So this is a great time to become a tax-deductible monthly subscriber. We actually recommend just a small donation, $5 a month. That doesn't really hurt. And that way, we have that steady support. And if you want to give us more, absolutely, please. We could certainly use your support right now. And the way to do that is to go to smartelections.us and donate. And I'm going to ask Mark right now. I'm just going to see if we have some questions. Jean is saying the poll tape does make sense. It's the early voting scanner, so early voting for all precincts show up on the tape. Numbers do match. Okay, see, that's why we're doing this, is to get people to help us out. So that is fantastic. Okay, so Jean is absolutely an expert on this because she's been doing this like actually in Georgia, and that is fantastic. So thank you, Jean. So that one is resolved, and we had another similar one that was like that in Randolph County that we figured out. In Cobb County, they caught. So far as we can tell, the poll tapes that we have looked at, it looks like probably have all been reported. So then the next stage that we're going to be moving on to is to find out more what happened within the voting machines themselves, because the poll tapes tell you if they got reported correctly, but the next part is to check what happened within the machine. So the way to do that is to do public records request for things like the actual digital ballot images, or to do paper ballot counts, and also to check things like, did the number of voters match the number of ballots? Those are reconciliations that you can do. And usually that's with public records requests. So if you want to do public records requests with us, then that's another way to volunteer. So what I'm going to do right now, one of the great ways to check whether or not results match is through hand counts. And in Georgia, they are doing a hand count of the paper ballots, and also some of the paper ballots which were produced by machines, which is not as good as hand-marked paper ballots in terms of accuracy. But I'm going to introduce you now to Harvie Branscomb. And Harvie, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, great. Glad to be here.
Okay, so tell us just a little bit about what's going on in Georgia with the hand count. And I want to ask first, I think we better go through a little bit of a glossary of terms. So I know risk limiting audit is one. Can you kind of very briefly just explain to us what's a risk limiting audit?
Well, the idea of a risk limiting tabulation audit is to determine whether the outcome corresponds to the actual voter intent on the ballots as detected by the voting system. So the concept of it is to take a look at the margin and find out how many ballots you'd have to look at in order to confirm with a high degree of probability that the outcome is correct. And if not, then the risk limit audit will actually ask human beings to look at more ballots, interpret them, and then add them to the collection until the so-called risk limit has been reached. So typically, this is a very efficient way of auditing an election, because in a huge statewide contest like 5 million votes, often you only have to look at a few hundred votes across an entire state. But that's talking about a several percent margin.
Yeah, if it's not close. If it's not close. But the race for the presidency in Georgia is very close. What's separating the two candidates right now?
Changing slightly today, maybe, but around 14,000 votes.
Out of 5 million.
Right.
Very close, under 1%. Under 0.5%.
Under 0.5%, which is
under 0.5%. Okay, so when you have a very, very close race in a risk limiting audit, what happens?
The very close, you end up escalating your audit and adding more and more ballots to the random sample until you are sampling maybe 20% of the entire election. And that's what would have happened if they had actually random sampled in Georgia. But some people at the top of the food chain at the Secretary of State's office figured out that it's probably more efficient to actually hand count the entire election rather than asking them to random sample a huge percentage of the ballots.
Right, and we have someone in the comments actually saying in close races, RLA results in complete recount. And I think often it does, right? If you have a very, very close race, doesn't a risk limiting audit generally go to a full recount?
Yes, of course. Yes, eventually you add enough ballots until it's a complete recount. But the point is, I'm sorry, I'm careful about the word recount because it means very special things in Georgia because of legal terminology. But a retally is what's being termed. And for practical purposes, the risk limiting audit should be a full hand count at some level. But right now, the definition of RLA doesn't actually include the specific threshold at which you should go to such a count. It would depend on the logistics of each county's operation, whether they'd like to do, or they would presumably want to actually do a sequential count or not. But in this case, the Secretary of State's office said, yes, you had better do a sequential count, a hand tally.
Okay, so there's a fair amount of jargon in there, but what you're saying is that a risk limiting audit usually just takes a sample of the ballots and looks at them by hand to determine that the results are accurate. But in this case, the race was so close that the Secretary of State said, we're going to do a full hand count of all 5 million ballots. Is that correct?
That's right. And idealistically, okay, that was a good choice to make. It did make sense.
Okay, so now tell us kind of like what it's been like. You've been down there watching it, and what's your experience?
Right, so there are thousands of pairs of citizens who are sitting at tables in the there are 100 and some odd counties. I don't know exactly how many in Georgia, but a lot. And in each one, there are pairs of citizens sitting at tables who are actually sorting the ballots from batches that were tabulated in the election. Most of them tabulated around election night. And they're setting them out into piles, one for Trump, one for Biden, one for Jorgensen, one for undervotes, which means not a vote for presidential contest, and overvotes in case they voted for more than one presidential candidate. And then there's write-in, which there were several contestants who were allowed to be written in and counted officially in the election count. And then finally, the most interesting category is the undetermined category, where the two people sitting at the table couldn't agree on which stack the ballot should go in. For the most part, there are two types of ballots being sorted there. That's really important to know. And about 25% of the ballots are absentee ballots that were voted by hand by voters, probably at home, and typically mailed back or dropped off into drop boxes. And so those ballots have marks on them next to candidate names. The other kind of ballot, which about 75% of the ballots in Georgia are machine marked, ballot marking device marked. And they have an 8.5 by 11 sheet that has a huge QR code, or perhaps 2 or 3 QR codes on it, and then the names of the candidates voted for. So there'd be one name for the president candidate voted for, or no candidate voted for. And these citizens are actually looking at that kind of fine print that's next to the big QR code and stacking the papers, the ballots, based on that print.
So I think we've got a picture up there that show up on us. Yeah. So this is basically what it looks like, right?
And I didn't see that many cases of using those nice postal trays like those are. That's very good because it kind of keeps the stack in one place. And more typically, they were stacking them on a flat table with that official Biden sign that was provided by the Secretary of State just sitting flat on the table.
Okay, this one was in Marietta, Georgia. It was a photo from the AP. So this is what they're doing is called a sort and stack, right? That's the type of hand count this is, because we had Virginia Martin and Karen McKim on a couple weeks ago talking about different types of hand counts. And we didn't really talk about the sort and stack because we were talking about really trying to count all the races by hand. But when you're just counting 2 races, basically, can you just tell us a little bit kind of like what's the kind of like down and dirty? What's the sort and stack and why is it kind of fast and easy?
Well, the idea of the sort and stack is to stack by candidate choice. This is actually a single contest with 3 candidate choices plus the under and over and the undetermined. And the next election they'll have, most of the ballots will have 2 contests on them, but that's what you might have referred to just now. But so the idea of the sort and stack is you physically see the count. You see the stack of ballots. It's a very transparent method. But the most interesting thing about it is that it's harder to make a mistake with a sort and stack. And if you do make a mistake, somebody else can come along and improve on your sort by looking again. So every time you look at a stack of sorted ballots, you're going to get a better result in the end. So that's the really wonderful thing about sort and stack.
So do they double count the stacks? Like 2 people count them?
In the case of Georgia, there are 2 people sitting there and they pass the ballot and one of them speaks the name that they're reading and the other one checks it and puts it in the stack. And the first person sees what stack it goes into.
And then do they do a stack of like 50 at a time, or how are they doing those stacks?
That varied from county to county, but at least they were stacking them in groups of 10 or 25 and then rotating 90 degrees so that you could count the number of subset stacks inside the stack.
Okay, and then we're going to do my questions and then we'll get to the audience questions. So is it going pretty quickly?
I think so. I'm amazed. You talked about how smartelections.us jumped into a big scope thing and ramped up really fast. Well, that's what Georgia's actually doing. They were not expecting to do a statewide hand count as basically their first real RLA. And Colorado, I'm not sure that Colorado could handle what Georgia's actually managing to do. And that's one of the reasons I'm down here looking at how it's being done to try to understand what the pluses and minuses are. But Georgia has managed to field a huge number of citizens actually sorting and stacking these ballots and then counting up the stacks and writing on paper forms the number of votes for each candidate, for each batch. And then the interesting part about this so-called hand count is what happens next.
Okay, so let me I'm sorry, I want to make sure I understand. So they sort and stack in like piles of 25 and then they alternate them kind of like the cabin log, right? Okay, yep. And then you're saying they write that down on a tally sheet, like by 25, 25, 20. So you got a 25, 25, 25, 25. You have 100 votes for Biden, 25, 25, 25, 25, 100 votes for Trump. And they're putting those in spreadsheets?
Not spreadsheets, no. They're writing them on a piece of paper and signing at the bottom. And they write the number. They should write 0 when they have no counts for Jorgensen or whatever, but sometimes they don't. But and ideally, I would like them to be adding up those numbers and see that they add up to the number of ballots they've actually counted or they're working with. But that mathematics is not part of the process, unfortunately.
Okay, and then so what they have been using is this piece of technology that I know you told me you were a little bit uncomfortable with that Voting Works developed. It's called the Arlo, I think, the ARLO.
Right, Arlo is a open software, which is, I think, Arlo includes the R and L of risk limiting. I think it's intended to.
Is that how you spell it, Arlo?
Yes, that's how you spell it.
Okay, and tell us about the Arlo and why you're uncomfortable with it.
Well, Arlo is a software product by a company called Voting Works, and they are working with the state of Georgia to help them with the risk limiting audit introduction here. And they would presumably have used Arlo to help tell which county which ballots they would actually go random sample, and pull the individual ballots and check the counts on them, or individual batches. They may have been individual batches depending on how they would have done the audit.
So the Arlo was a little piece of technology that was developed if you were actually not doing 100% hand count. If you were doing a risk limiting audit, that's what it was designed for.
That's correct.
Okay, but what are they doing with it now?
They are entering the results of what's contained on those batch sheets are being entered by other people in each county. Sometimes it's a couple of citizen workers, and sometimes it's the actual director of Board of Elections or the supervisor or so who's controlling the Arlo machine, but they're typing in the numbers, and then the numbers are going straight up to the Secretary of State's office, or somewhere where the server is. We don't know, but there's a server that contains all the data. It's basically a website that they're typing into. And it's kind of like internet voting, but it's internet voting on a massive scale where the entire batch is being entered into the cloud. And then at some point, we understand that the Secretary of State is going to release the numbers out of the Arlo. And we don't know when exactly, but the great news that I just have heard today that they've announced on a press conference is that they are going to make public the batch sheets, which means basically what you're talking about, poll tapes for the hand count operation.
So now we're going to have to
That's
look at
correct.
all of those batch sheets now after we already looked at all the poll tapes.
You got it. Yes, those are basically poll tapes, and they need to be entered into spreadsheets independent of Arlo, independent of the Secretary of State, and compared with the election results. Fortunately, I know that some of the counties are already doing that on their own, as you might expect they would, because they'd like to know, like before the Secretary of State knows whether they're going to end up with discrepancies or not.
Yeah,
And
I just want to jump in here because I have to say that that's really frustrating. There's a couple things about this that were very concerning to me. One, when I heard that the Secretary of State is not going to announce the results of the recount until all of the results are finished. Because I know when I watched the Wisconsin recount as a journalist, I covered it. And I was in Brown County for a while, and they had a big whiteboard, and every precinct they counted, they had the numbers on the board, and they would say, Trump, gained this many, and Clinton gained this many, or lost whatever. And it was every precinct they were tracking the gains and the losses. And for the whole recount just to be kind of obscure until the very end, and then they publish the results, that seems to me to be defeating the purpose of transparency. And I have to say, this little Arlo device also seems to be taking what could have been a tremendously transparent process and introducing technology into it in a way that obscures the results and makes it less trustworthy. So I have to say, both of those things I find very disturbing.
yes, it's a machine interfered with hand count, actually, you could say, or it's black box voting.
Why can't we just do things right? Why can't we just make it transparent? We're counting 5 million ballots by hand in public. Why can't we just count 5 million ballots by hand in public?
Exactly. Well, I have to mention that in addition to being a black box, they actually made it extremely difficult or impossible to get near one of those terminals where they were entering the data. So the potential for the citizens to actually check to see that the right numbers are being put in is basically zero. Maybe there are a few counties where it was possible, but very unlikely. They generally speaking would not, and they weren't permitting any photographs, or so all of the in-process data is completely hidden from the public right now. But we hear that they're going to release actual scans of the batch tabulations, which will actually allow for a public count to take place. And that's a really good thing. That will have nothing to do with Arlo and the numbers that the Secretary of State will have access to.
Well, that's good. And I think that's good. I do wish that it was more transparent, but we're making progress. We're doing hand counts. I think that's progress. Eileen Nakamura, another advocate who works with Coalition for Good Governance. I've watched 2 counties doing this process, but the process of 2 strangers working together to make sure the count is correct is surprisingly nonpartisan. And I love that. I think that's great. And we hear over and over again that we can't do hand counts. It's impossible. It's too expensive. It takes too much time. People can't count. But we actually find that when we need to, we can do hand counts. We can count 5 million ballots. We can cooperate. We can do it in public. So I think these things actually, can be done. So let's just jump in and get a few questions, because then we're going to get Stephanie on, and I'm very excited to see her work as well. So let's just jump in. We had a question from Chris Bystroff. Is there any way to tamper with a hand count or audit?
Well, without publishing the batch tally sheets, there would be, in this case, sure, anybody who happens to have their hands on the Arlo terminal can edit the results that are going to the Secretary of State's office.
And we had an answer also
if we get full transparency, and there also are monitors who are actually being assigned by the parties. There are 3 parties involved, the Libertarian and the Democrat Republican, and there are a lot of those monitors who are walking around watching the pairs of people doing the sort. So it's likely that if they were doing it really badly, they would be noticed.
Okay, that was sounds like we have at least some oversight there. And we did have one of the guests also put up a possibility exchanging the tally sheets. That would be one way to possibly even accidentally mess things up, or intentionally. So that's another comment from the guests there. And then I know, let me just check. We had some other questions come in was the Green Party a write-in for the state?
Is the Green Party doesn't have a candidate for president, so
okay,
they would have to be a write-in. Yeah.
Okay, so basically that's a no. And
I would like to mention one other thing that's a possible huge plus of doing this hand count, and that is if we can take those batch tabulations and compare them to the actual machine tabulation on a granular basis, batch by batch. And it might happen with a recount that follows this. The recount, according to Georgia law, is a machine tabulation, and the losing candidate, presumed losing candidate, within 0.5% can request it. And I think it's highly likely it will get requested, and there will be another machine tabulation of all these ballots. And if they can be compared to the hand tallies, we're going to learn a lot about where there are flaws in the voting system, the adjudication method that the Dominion system uses, and possibly learn about any flaws in the hand count as well. So,
are you saying, Harvie, they are going to machine recount all these ballots again after they hand counted them?
I'd say it's very likely, yes. But so my personal opinion, but according to law, yes, the Trump campaign can request a machine recount as soon as the state certifies the election.
And it's likely that they're going to do that. So we're going to maybe count these 5 million ballots 3 times. Mm-hmm. I have to say, there was also a comment on NPR that I found a little bit disturbing today in their article on this. The NPR article said that the machine count is more accurate than the hand count. And I found that stunning that NPR would say that, because I've never heard an election security expert say that. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So machine counts are more reliable. That means test, retest. At the same time, you run the machine again, yet you're going to get the same answer every time. That's reliability. That's not accuracy. So all of the accuracy of the election is based on hand counts at one point or another. You can't design a machine without having done a hand count first in order to get the best result. So we really have to respect the hand count, and the poorer ways of doing the hand count tend to generate a lot of noise, a lot of errors. And that's why people have gained a really disrespect for hand counts. But what Georgia is actually doing is actually, I believe, one of the best ways, certainly the best way to have humans do the interpretation and reflect that as different stacks in front of them. So with monitors watching.
We'll just take one more comment there from Eileen. She said, however, I saw many 2-person teams not carrying out the procedures correctly. One person reading out candidate's name and the other placing in a stack, but the first person did not verify the stack. So that's one of the things about having 2 people look at a ballot, is that they both look at it usually and say, yeah, that's right. Or sometimes in the other methods, you have 4 people looking at a ballot. Often it'll be one person calling out, one person writing down for one candidate, and one person calling out and one person writing down for the other candidate. So sometimes you have 4. Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap there. Harvie, always fascinating to have you on. I just love how you really get in there, really, like you said, granular detail, really untangling these webs, pulling them apart. And I think the one other thing, Marilyn Marks had a thread on Twitter today saying that the results from this hand count are actually not going to be the final results. It's the machine count that's going to be the final legal results. Is that correct?
That's correct. However, the hand count has uncovered some flaws that were not actually tabulator flaws, but they were handling flaws. They were chain of custody. They were memory cards that were not actually ever tabulated by the election management system, or ballots that never went into the tabulator. And that was the
2,500 votes in Floyd County, right?
Floyd County, Fayette County was discovered or reported today. And then there's another one in Walton County that the Secretary of State hasn't talked about yet, other than to mention the name. But a few hundred votes there, apparently.
And are those going to get included in the previous machine count total?
Apparently those counties are going to revise their machine counts, or machine count again if they have to, or the Floyd is machine counting again right now, I believe.
Okay, so they are incorporating the results of the hand count into the final count, one way or another.
Cases, if the hand count indicated that there was a flaw in the machine count that was systematic, that was soluble by, it's a clear flaw, a human error or something in the operation of the voting system, they'll go back and fix it. So there's a statement from the Secretary of State's office. It's a little vague about which kinds of errors they are going to actually correct and which ones they won't.
Okay, Georgia, as always, making it up as they go along. Okay. Harvie, thank you so much for being here. It's really a pleasure.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And we're just going to move right along now, because we are so happy to have back to the show Stephanie Singer. a wonderful resource. Stephanie, just tell people a little bit about your background, because you've done so many really interesting things.
Yeah, so I'm a mathematician by training, and I was a college professor in mathematics, wrote some books, did some research, that kind of thing. Got interested in elections, and how can you tell if an election was fair, and can mathematics help you do that? And ended up going deep into the Philadelphia Democratic machine, eventually running for office, and winning and serving 4 years on the Philadelphia County Board of Elections. And boy, am I glad I'm not there right now.
Stephanie Singer got her education first, her PhD, and then she got her real education.
Exactly.
Philadelphia streets.
Yeah, and since then I've been working on a variety of projects, but mostly for verified voting, and then I got some funding from the National Science Foundation to build the thing I've been dreaming of for a long time: a website where people can slice and dice and analyze election results in time, really right after the election, in time to press for investigations if anything untoward is, or not even untoward, anything unusual and not immediately explainable is found.
So are you going to be able to are you going to be able to share your screen? Try and see. I'm sorry we didn't have time to test this. See if you can. Are you going to share your screen, or do you want me to show the visualizer?
I would like to share my screen if I can.
I'm not sure you can, but you might have to.
I think I probably can.
Try it.
Try
you need
it.
that share screen.
I did.
And then you're going to go to Chrome. Are you on Chrome?
Yeah, I need to give permission.
I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen so I can walk people through this. So you're going to go to verifiedvoting.org. That's where Stephanie has the vote visualizer. And when you get to verifiedvoting.org, what you're going to look for, you're going to go under tools, and you're going to go to the vote visualizer project. And when they get here, just tell us a little bit about what this can do, because I think this is a really cool tool, especially now because there's just like so many kind of people wondering, are these results right? Are these results right?
Yeah. So, boy, I'm really sorry I can't share my screen because I actually lined up a bunch of stuff for you. So, for example, right there, if you're at the Explore Top Outliers, you first of all pick an election, 2020 general. You can pick 2020 general in the box on the left-hand side, and you should get some states lighting up. Basically, those are the states that we have data for. We also have for Alaska. Sorry, that doesn't light up on the side, but we do have it. So then you can choose a state, like you might want to choose North Carolina, maybe.
Okay. And now I think we at least have it up, so you can at least walk me through it here. So, sorry, it took a little while to load there. So I'm going to choose a state. You said to choose North Carolina, or what do I choose first?
Choose an election. Choose an election. 2020 general.
Choose
on the left. All the way left.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay. Now choose a state.
Okay.
And so all those states that you can see, those are states we have data for the 2020 general. We also have data back 2016 and 2018 and 2020 primaries.
And now what am I going to do next?
You choose a state.
I choose North Carolina.
The menu. You chose North Carolina?
Isn't that what you wanted me to choose?
Yeah, that's a good one.
And now I don't see president here, though.
So you need to choose a kind of contest. So you choose statewide. If you want to see president, you can choose statewide.
I see. Okay.
And then now choose a contest, and it'll offer you all the contests that are statewide, including president. And you can just say, I want to please analyze all the statewide contests for me. So now it's going to think for a little bit, and then it's going to show you the most interesting outliers that our algorithm found. So there might be something interesting, there might not be. And also, this is very much a minimum viable product. There's lots that could be done with this algorithm to find other things. So does it say loading at the top and it's thinking?
Yeah, it's loading.
Okay. Yeah, so why don't we talk while it's loading, because it might take a little while. What do you want to know, Lulu?
Let's see if we have some questions from the audience. I bet they're curious about this already.
So I should say that in terms of verifying an election, the ideal thing is that someone who really knows the state uses this. So like I can look at North Carolina, but I don't know that much about North Carolina. For me, if I use this on Pennsylvania, then I know quite a lot about Pennsylvania, and so it's even more meaningful. And in terms of verifying the election, having candidates and candidates advocates look at this system is really valuable because it saves them the analysis time. It gives them, places that they might look. Yeah. Okay. So, so look at that in Randolph County. Maybe Lulu, you'll move it so we can see what color. Well, I know from that, because I know a little bit about North Carolina, that the yellow is Donald Trump and the orange is probably Joe Biden. Am I right, Lulu? There should be a legend under there. If you just move, so we can see the legend. There we go. Yeah. So, let's just look at this. So what this tells you is that that Randolph County went extraordinarily hard for Trump compared to the other counties in North Carolina on the absentee mail ballots. So,
right, because you see that the yellow is much lower in the other counties. So right. You'd have to go, and then you can see it looks sort of also, I see, and that's the average. Why is the Biden so tall in the average of all others?
Well, probably because, so I'm guessing that he did extremely well on the absentee ballots overall, but in these counties, he didn't do so well. In Cherokee, almost even, and in the other Stokes, Wilkes, Yadkin, Mitchell, Graham, and Randolph, he lost on the absentee ballots. I know because I looked it up. Randolph always shows up for the Republican, and if you look it up on Wikipedia, at least, it says it's a dyed-in-the-wool Republican county. So here's an example where you see something which is anomalous, and if you look at the race for Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which is the closest one in North Carolina, you'll see a big outlier in Randolph County also. But it seems quite likely that it's legitimate. So that's one way to use the vote visualizer. And then the second way is
so let me just ask you, I'm just scrolling down. So now these are the other counties. This is like Durham, and I see like a big outlier kind of for Biden. Durham went real strong for Biden. Is that what
election day ballots? So that second chart is just election day ballots.
Okay, so these are interesting, but they need to be compared with demographics. You need to know your local flavor and things like that. And so now let's take a question. I have a question here, and it says, can this tool compare between the 2016 and 2020 election results by county to look at places?
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's go do that. So go to the compare counts. That's the middle tab on the top there.
Okay, so we're going back. Thanks for your question, Michelle. I really appreciate all the questions today. It's really great. And so now what am I doing? Walk me through it. I have to go back to the top.
Go to the top, click on compare counts.
Are you seeing that?
And then I can see it, yeah. And then go to choose a state. And Michelle, what state do you want?
Sorry, she might.
Well, let's do North Carolina unless she tells us different.
Okay.
Or do you want to do Georgia?
I do want to do Georgia. We're all just obsessed with Georgia right now.
State, Georgia.
Okay.
And now, so election 1, so make that 2020 general or 2016 general. That's fine.
Okay.
Under category, do you want to do? Well, click on category so you get a menu.
I
don't see that yet.
Oh, it's there. Maybe it's not showing it to you, but I got like candidate early, candidate election day.
Yeah. So you do candidate election day.
Okay.
And go down to the count and pick a candidate. Like maybe you want to do Donald Trump.
Is it alphabetical?
It's It may be
hundreds of candidates here.
Yeah, because it has all the state house.
They're not alphabetical.
It's probably down near the bottom.
Okay, I found Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that'll do too.
We'll do that. Okay. And then we'll go 2020. Same thing, candidate election day, right?
Election day and do Joe Biden.
For 2020? Oh, I see. So we would compare how Clinton did with how Biden did?
Yeah.
Okay.
In election day votes. Election day votes only, right?
Have to find Biden.
Yeah. You may be able to just start typing Joseph. I might find it for you.
Johnny. Sorry, guys. This is the first time I used this part of it.
Yeah, go down to the, did you find Hillary Clinton near the bottom?
Yeah, I did.
Then go down to the bottom.
So how long did it take you to create this, Stephanie?
I started it a year ago, October. So, and I started building the back end. I should say Verified Voting built the front end here, made it look so nice.
Okay, I think we've got this settled. So I don't know, can you guys see this? It says...
Yeah, you need to scroll up a bit so that we can see the picture.
Okay.
Still can't see it. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so what you can see is that in terms of election day votes, the fact that you have this line more or less means that there was a trend of the relationship between Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden's votes. But the interesting things are the ones that are off the line. So if you point at any one of those dots, Lulu, you will see, and I hope we will see, but we might not because of how this screen sharing works. But there you go. You can see what the county is. So you can just mouse around and see which counties are, off the line, the ones that are, I don't have time to give you a whole scatter plot reading lesson, but there's a video on the About page that will give you a little scatter plot reading lesson.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Basically, what you have a video that kind of, because most of us don't, we like see a line, and those of us who aren't statisticians, you really have to walk us through what does the line mean. It means there's a line basically is a correlation between what's happening on, they call these the X graphs and the X
axis and the Y axis.
The Y axis, right?
We're limited for time.
Yeah.
I'm going to point people to the video for that because something I want to show you very much is if you go back to where it says 2016 general, okay? Do you see, do you see the box where it says 2016 general?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you make that 2020 general, so click there, make that 2020 general. Now go to category, and at the bottom, you're going to see census data. And now, if you go to the count menu, you're going to see you have a lot of options. You have some income options. You have some, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian options. And so there you go. So now what you can do is you can graph candidates against census data. And the labeling on the census data is not, we need to do some improvements on how these charts are labeled when we use census data because we just added the census data. But actually, can you just show that again, Lulu? Because so what I want you guys to take away from this is that for Georgia right now, and pretty soon for the other states as well, we have census data so that you can see trends of vote counts relative to various population counts. And it's super interesting. If you want something fun, do Stacey Abrams, votes for Stacey Abrams in 2018 versus Black population, and then do it versus white population. The pictures look completely different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for our data geeks. And I have to say, if you're a data geek, then you want to join us. You want to go to that website that I told you about before, which is our our data website, countthevote.info, and join our data team, because we're going to be using Stephanie's tool and lots of other tools and continue to look for evidence, not rumor, not speculation, evidence that our votes are being counted accurately, because that is what we all deserve. We deserve for candidates to have confidence in the election results, and we deserve for voters to have confidence that their results are being counted accurately. So Stephanie, thank you so much for all of your work. I'm so excited that you've got this tool out and that we're all going to be able to work with it now. So thanks so much for all that you've done.
Thanks. And if you find something with it, please let me know, because I want to keep it going.
Okay, so do we want to make your, how do you want people to get in touch with you?
There's actually, there's an email right there on the website, and they can just email to that website, to that email.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay. Thank you again. Okay, so that is our show today, and I think that it's really exciting. We are doing things that have never been done before. We have never been able to check our election results with the detail that we are starting to be able to check them. We are pushing harder and harder for full transparency, full security, full accuracy, full accessibility, and full inclusion for our elections. We want a real democracy, and that's how we get it. We get a real democracy by demanding these things, and then after we demand them, who are we demanding them from? Probably people that we have to follow up with and go and maybe sometimes do it ourselves. That's kind of what it comes down to. We can demand, but then we have to go and really do it ourselves, because that's what democracy is about. It's about us doing it ourselves. So signing out from Smart Elections, I'm Lulu Freistadt, and this is what democracy looks like. And join us, we'll be back in 2 weeks on December 1st, same time, 7 p.m. here on YouTube and on Facebook. Join us then. Thanks.